For most of the 20th century, the skies above Soviet territory were guarded by a lineage of aircraft that would come to define entire eras of aerial warfare, from the desperate dogfights of the Second World War to the tense, high-stakes standoffs of the Cold War. This is the story of Soviet military aviation, told through four names that became legends in their own right: Yakovlev, Mikoyan-Gurevich, Sukhoi, and Tupolev. Our story begins in the darkest days of the Great Patriotic War, in the summer and autumn of 1941, when the Soviet Air Force found itself devastated within the opening weeks of the German invasion. Thousands of Soviet aircraft were destroyed on the ground in the first days of Operation Barbarossa alone. Many of them obsolete biplanes caught completely unprepared. Out of this catastrophe emerged the Yakovlev Design Bureau, led by Alexander Yakovlev, which produced a series of increasingly capable fighter aircraft, most notably the Yak-9, a lightweight, highly maneuverable fighter that Soviet pilots came to trust for its agility in close-range dogfighting against German Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs. Unlike many Western fighters of the era, Yakovlev's designs prioritized simplicity and ease of mass production, philosophy that mirrored the same industrial logic that had already produced the T-34 tank. Build something good enough, and build it in overwhelming numbers. As the war ground on, Soviet aviation matured rapidly, benefiting from captured German technology. Lend-lease aircraft and engines supplied by the United States and Britain, and hard-won combat experience gathered across thousands of engagements on the Eastern Front. By the war's end in 1945, Soviet designers had absorbed an enormous amount of practical knowledge, and crucially, they had also captured German jet engine technology and research documents, setting the stage for the next great leap in aviation history, the jet age. That leap arrived with startling speed. In 1947, the Mikoyan-Gurevich Design Bureau unveiled the MiG-15, a swept-wing jet fighter that shocked Western military planners when it appeared over the skies of Korea in 1950. American pilots flying propeller-driven aircraft and even early jets found themselves badly outmatched by the MiG-15's speed and altitude performance. The United States rushed the F-86 Sabre into the conflict specifically to counter it, setting up one of the most famous aerial rivalries in history, fought out in the skies over the Yalu River in what pilots came to call MiG Alley. While the two aircraft were closely matched in raw performance, American pilots generally held an edge in training and gunsight technology. But the MiG-15's mere existence proved that Soviet aviation had, in remarkably short order, caught up to, and in some respects surpassed Western jet design. Through the following decades, the MiG Bureau would go on to produce an entire dynasty of fighters that became instantly recognizable symbols of Soviet air power. The MiG-21, an agile, needle-nosed interceptor produced in numbers exceeding 10,000 aircraft and exported to dozens of countries around the world, becoming perhaps the most widely used jet fighter in history. Later, the MiG-25, a fighter built almost entirely from steel rather than lighter aluminum alloys, was designed to intercept high-altitude American reconnaissance aircraft at blistering speeds exceeding 3 times the speed of sound, so alarming Western intelligence when a defecting pilot flew one to Japan in 1976 that it triggered a complete reassessment of Soviet aviation capability. Meanwhile, an entirely separate design tradition was developing under Pavel Sukhoi, whose bureau initially struggled for recognition during the Stalin era, but would eventually produce some of the most capable combat aircraft the Soviet Union ever fielded. The Sukhoi Su-7 and later Su-17 series provided rugged ground attack capability throughout the Cold War, but it was the later Su-27, entering service in the 1980s, that truly cemented Sukhoi's reputation. Designed specifically to counter America's F-15 Eagle, the Su-27 combined exceptional maneuverability with genuinely impressive range, and its later demonstrations of extreme aerobatic maneuvers, including the now famous Pugachev's Cobra, a maneuver where the aircraft pitches dramatically nose up while continuing forward, stunned airshow audiences around the world once the Soviet Union began revealing its aircraft publicly in the final years of the Cold War. While fighter aircraft captured public imagination, an equally important story was unfolding in the realm of strategic bombers, machines designed not for dogfighting, but for delivering the Soviet Union's most devastating weapons across vast distances. The Tupolev Design Bureau, already a legendary name in Soviet aviation dating back to the 1920s, produced the Tu-95, codenamed Bear by NATO, an enormous, distinctly old-fashioned-looking bomber powered by 4 massive turboprop engines rather than jets. Despite its seemingly outdated propeller-driven design, the Tu-95 achieved genuinely remarkable range and endurance, allowing it to patrol vast stretches of ocean and probe the airspace of NATO countries for decades, a practice that continues in modified forms even today. Its distinctive engine noise and appearance made it one of the most recognizable symbols of Soviet strategic power throughout the entire Cold War. Tupolev's bureau also produced the Tu-160, codenamed Blackjack, a genuinely supersonic strategic bomber that entered service in the final years of the Soviet Union, representing the pinnacle of Soviet long-range strike capability and remaining, even decades later, one of the largest and fastest bomber aircraft ever built by any nation. Taken together, these four design bureaus, Yakovlev, Mikoyan-Gurevich, Sukhoi, and Tupolev, represented far more than simply competing engineering teams. They reflected a broader Soviet approach to military aviation, rapid adaptation under wartime pressure, a willingness to prioritize mass production and reliability alongside raw performance, and an enduring rivalry with Western aviation that pushed both sides toward increasingly extraordinary feats of engineering throughout the 20th century. From the desperate skies over the Eastern Front in 1941, to the tense standoffs of MiG Alley in Korea, to the supersonic bombers patrolling the edges of NATO airspace during the final decade of the Cold War, Soviet aviation left a mark on the history of flight that remains visible even today, in aircraft still flying in air forces around the world. If you're enjoying this journey through Soviet military history, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. In the next episode, we'll turn to the weapon that came to symbolize the terrifying scale of Cold War destructive power, the Tsar Bomba, and the Soviet nuclear program that produced it. See you there.